On March 3rd, 2025, a black Tacoma rolled into my bay with a complaint I have heard 1,000 times, and a cause almost nobody guesses correctly. The owner was a careful guy. Receipts in a folder, synthetic oil, premium fuel every fill-up, a bottle of injector cleaner in the tank every few months because a YouTube video told him it protected his engine. And yet his truck shuddered for the first 2 seconds on every cold start, idled a little rough until it warmed, and had quietly lost fuel economy he swore he used to have. He had done everything right. That was the problem, because almost everything he was doing to protect his engine was aimed at the wrong end of it. Today, I am going to show you the single most misunderstood failure inside modern Toyota engines, why the most loyal, most careful owners are often the ones it bites, and the roughly $30 habit that actually stops it. The expensive ritual most people perform does absolutely nothing. Here is what makes this so frustrating. This man was convinced his fuel system was the issue because that is what everyone is taught. Dirty injectors, bad gas, cheap fuel, so he spent money on the tank, top-tier gasoline, detergent additives, the works. And I want you to understand something that the people selling those bottles will never say out loud. On a direct injection engine, the fuel never touches the part that was actually getting dirty. Not once, not ever. The thing he was trying to clean and the thing he was cleaning were on opposite sides of a wall. To understand why, you have to understand how these engines changed. For decades, Toyota and everyone else used port injection. The fuel injector sat in the intake port and sprayed gasoline onto the back of the intake valve, where it mixed with air before being pulled into the cylinder. That design wasted a little efficiency, but it had a hidden gift nobody appreciated at the time. Every drop of fuel washed over the back of that intake valve thousands of times a minute, and the detergents in the gasoline scrubbed it clean as a side effect. The valve stayed spotless for the life of the engine without anyone trying. That is why your grandfather's Toyota never needed its valves cleaned. The fuel did it for free. Then came direct injection, and the rules flipped. To make more power from less fuel and squeeze out better economy, engineers moved the injector out of the port and screwed it straight into the combustion chamber. Now the fuel is blasted directly into the cylinder at enormous pressure after the intake valve has already closed. It is more efficient. It is more powerful, and it created a problem the industry is still quietly dealing with today. Because the fuel no longer flows past the intake valve, nothing washes it anymore. The back of that valve is now exposed, dry, and defenseless. So what gets it dirty? This is the part that surprises people. It is not the fuel, it is the oil. Every engine, including yours, has a system called positive crankcase ventilation, the PCV system. As the engine runs, a small amount of pressure and oily vapor builds up inside the crankcase, blow-by gases that slip past the piston rings. Instead of venting that to the atmosphere, which would be illegal and filthy, the engine routes it back into the intake to be burned. It is a sensible, clean idea. But that vapor is not pure air. It is a fine mist of hot oil. And on a port injection engine, it never mattered because the fuel spray washed the valves clean anyway. On a direct injection engine, that oily mist drifts across the back of the intake valve with nothing to rinse it off. The valve is hot. The oil bakes on. A little at a time, shutdown after shutdown, mile after mile, it hardens into carbon. Picture the inside of a chimney slowly glazing over with soot, except this chimney is the air passage feeding your engine. And here is the cruel part. Nothing breaks. There is no warning light, no dramatic failure. The engine just slowly loses the ability to breathe freely on the intake side. Cold starts get rougher because the deposits soak up fuel and disturb airflow when the engine is most vulnerable. Idle gets a little lumpy. Fuel economy fades by a few percent a year, slowly enough that you blame the weather or your tires or your own memory. The throttle feels a touch lazier. None of it screams. All of it whispers. By the time it is bad enough to throw a misfire code, you are looking at pulling the intake manifold and physically blasting the valves clean with crushed walnut shells, a job that can run many hundreds of dollars at a shop. Now here is where I have to be honest with you, because plenty of channels would just tell you your Toyota is a ticking time bomb, and that is not true. Toyota saw this problem coming and engineered around it better than almost anyone. Most modern Toyota and Lexus engines, like the V6 in the Tacoma, the Turbo 4 now in the Tacoma, the 4Runner and Land Cruiser, and the twin turbo in the Tundra, use a system Toyota calls D4S. It is genuinely clever. It keeps both kinds of injectors. There are direct injectors in the cylinder for power and efficiency, and there are also port injectors sitting up in the intake, and the computer uses them at different times. At light load and cold start, the port injectors do more of the work, and when they fire, they wash the valves the old-fashioned way. That dual system is a real advantage, and it is a big reason Toyota engines do not suffer the horror story carbon problems you read about with certain German and other direct injection-only engines. If you own one of these, you are starting from a much better place than most. I want you to know that. But, and this is the uncomfortable truth, better is not the same as immune. D4S reduces the problem. It does not erase it. The port injectors do not run constantly. Under hard load, towing, climbing, or boost in turbo engines, the engine leans heavily on direct injection. And during all of that, the valves are getting the oil mist with no fuel wash. And on the older pure direct injection, Toyota and Lexus engines that came before the dual system was everywhere, there is no port wash at all. So whether you have meaningful buildup or not comes down to two things almost nobody mentions: how oily your crankcase vapor is and how often you actually clean it out of the equation. That is where you have control, and that is where the mistake lives. Because here is what the careful owner does. He pours premium fuel and injector cleaner into the tank year after year, feeling protected. And on a direct injection engine, that bottle of fuel system cleaner goes in one side, runs through the injectors in the cylinder, and never makes contact with the carbon on the back of the intake valve, because the carbon is upstream of where the fuel ever goes. It is like trying to clean your windshield by washing the inside of your gas tank. They are not connected. You can empty 100 bottles into that tank, and the valves will keep glazing over, because you are treating a problem on the oil side with a product made for the fuel side. The bottle is not a scam exactly. It is just aimed at the wrong wall, and the people selling it are perfectly happy to let you keep believing the ritual works, because a confident customer with a recurring habit is a good customer. A reset of your understanding does not sell additives. So let me tell you what actually moves the needle and what that $30 habit really is. The root cause is oily vapor reaching the valves. So the fix is simple in concept: stop the oil before it gets there. The cleanest, cheapest way to do that is a device called an oil catch can. It is a small canister that you splice into the PCV line between your engine and the intake. The oily crankcase vapor flows into the can first. The heavy oil mist condenses and collects in the bottom, and only the cleaner air continues on into your intake. The oil that would have baked onto your valves instead pools in a little container you empty at every oil change. Budget catch cans start right around $30. Better ones with proper multi-stage separators cost more, and on a truck you plan to keep for 15 years, I would spend a little extra. The habit part is just remembering to drain it when you change your oil. When you do, you will be genuinely disgusted by how much black, oily sludge collects in there over a few thousand miles. That is sludge that is no longer cooking onto the back of your valves. That is the whole point. I have to be straight with you about the limits, because I am not here to sell you a miracle. A catch can does not remove carbon that is already there. If your valves are already glazed, the can slows future buildup but will not reverse the existing damage. That still takes a proper cleaning. The can also has to be plumbed correctly with the right hoses on the right ports, or you can confuse your PCV system and cause new headaches. And it is not a license to neglect everything else. But as a cheap, proactive habit on a direct injection engine you intend to keep a long time, intercepting the oil before it ever reaches the valve is the most honest $30 you can spend. It addresses the actual cause instead of the imaginary one. And there are free habits that stack on top of it, because the catch can is only half the story. The volume and stickiness of that oil vapor depends on your oil and how you drive. Use a quality, full synthetic oil that meets your engine's current specification, because cheaper, more volatile oils boil off more vapor into the PCV system in the first place. Less vapor in means less oil reaching the valves. Do not stretch your oil intervals to the absolute maximum just because the maintenance minder lets you. Tired oil vaporizes more. And give the engine real heat. Chronic short trips, the 2-mile drive to work and back where the engine never fully warms, are where deposits build fastest, because cold engines produce more blow-by and never get hot enough to burn things clean. Once in a while, on a safe stretch of road, take it up through the rev range under load and let it run hot and hard for a few minutes. Think of it as clearing your throat. None of that costs $1, and all of it reduces the oil load reaching your valves. Now, if you drive an older Toyota truck, say a 4Runner with the naturally aspirated 4.0-liter V6, I will let you relax completely. That engine is port injected. The fuel still washes your valves every second the engine runs, exactly the way nature intended. You do not have this problem at all, and you do not need a catch can to solve a problem you do not have. I tell you that because credibility cuts both ways. I am not going to scare you into buying something you do not need. The whole point of understanding how your specific engine works is so you stop spending money out of fear and start spending it out of knowledge. That is what this really comes down to. The man with the black Tacoma was not careless. He was the opposite. He cared so much that he kept paying for the wrong protection, faithfully, for years, while the real cause quietly did its work on a part he was never told existed. He was not failed by neglect. He was failed by being taught to watch the wrong side of his engine. And once he understood that the fuel goes one way and the oil goes the other, and that only one of them was ever reaching his valves, the entire problem stopped being mysterious. It became something he could see, drain, and control with a $30 can and a quality jug of oil. So before you pour another bottle of additive into your tank believing it is protecting your intake valves, Stop and remember which side of the wall that bottle lives on. On a direct injection engine, the valves are cleaned by the oil you keep out, not the fuel you pour in. Catch the oil, drive it hot, change it on time. That is the habit that actually works, and it costs about the price of 2 bottles of the stuff that does not. If this changed the way you think about what is actually clogging your engine, hit like so more Toyota owners stop wasting money on the wrong end of the problem. Subscribe if you want weekly breakdowns that give you control instead of fear. And if you have ever pulled an intake and seen what carbon buildup really looks like, or if you have installed a catch can and been horrified by what came out, drop it in the comments. Because the most expensive engine problem is not the one you can see coming. It is the one you have been carefully, faithfully, expensively ignoring on the wrong side of the wall.